Welcome to Attican Plays Railroad Corporation. All right, hi, this is Attican. Welcome to Series 11, Episode 8 of Railroad Corporation, the Civil War DLC, Mission 3, called Missouri Seizure. And this is our first look at this mission. And remember, we are doing this playthrough without any passengers or mail to make it more challenging. And we have succeeded. We are now at war, and it's telling us that we're going to own all the businesses that belong to the North, basically. So when right there, that's the message here, and it's basically if we look at the map, all the U.S. flags. There's businesses in those towns, and we own all those businesses. Hooray for us! Except that that's a huge problem, because now we're paying overhead on all those buildings, and we would love to keep them so we don't have to build them later, so we could build our economy off of them. But it's going to be a challenge without any passenger mail. We run passenger mail to Burlington, St. Louis, take the money, do whatever we need to do, use that money to cover our expenses, but we don't have those options. So we're going to start out by running a line out here to this nearby wheat field. But you'll notice, of course, that there's no requirement for wheat in Burlington. So why in the world will we run this line? Well, give it a minute and we shall see. Now we check our employees, and the price of all locomotives is less. So we're going to go ahead and open up HR and grab that Florence, because that will be very useful to get 10% off of all of our locomotives. At the start, she'll kind of sort of pay for herself, like right here where she's saving us almost 10 grand. That's terrific. But later on, as our economy is going, having her on board will really help. The rate we're buying locomotives is not going to be that humongous right yet. Now there I started to set up a line and realized I haven't done the next step, which is put a farm in Burlington. Now we already have a farm over at Alton, as we're looking at, over to the right and down, I guess east and south of us. But we're going to put a farm in Burlington because we need it close by. We need to be able to do everything right here in a tight space, because we can't afford to lay a bunch of track and go to all that expense to go over to Alton. There you can see it down there. We just can't afford to lay all that track, and we've got to hook up with St. Louis, because our first task is to move soldiers and gunpowder down there to St. Louis. Plus, St. Louis is our big consumer. It's the one that can take the higher end stuff where you can actually start making money on freight. We now have a line set up so that we can go get wheat, sell it to the farm. The farm produces meat and leather. We're going to buy some meat and sell it off to Burlington to get our first income coming in. And here we get a message saying we can trade with the Confederate States, and now that opens up the map. Now we can see what businesses are in those Confederate States, and we have the ability to run lines down there and trade with those cities. That's all because of our high reputation that we built up in Mission 2. Our rep is 200, I believe it is, with the South. And we need to be 100 to have that kind of status, if you will. So T1's getting its repairs, and it will pick up some meat there. I think it just did. Yeah, it picked up some meat and sold it to, did it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's going to, when it gets the opportunity, it's going to pick up meat from the farm and sell it into Burlington. And now, because we have a great reputation with the union, they're going to give us some starter supplies: steel, bricks, lumber, lubricants, and textiles. And we're going to play some games with this and see what we can do with that. So the first thing we're going to do is go in and put in a trading department. That'll open up the opportunity to sell goods on the global market. But you notice, even though there's a warehouse there, that local warehouse, we don't have a warehouse according to the game. So we have to build our own warehouse in order to use the trading department. So you can see all that stuff that's in that local warehouse. That's the stuff they gave us. And we can see stuff in the local warehouse. Now we can go grab that stuff. And you notice that message up in the upper left is wrong. It's still there from the last time. But what we're going to do is buy some of the goods, and we're going to go out to the global market and sell them. So now we can just sell those as commodities to the global market, and that's going to bring us in some cash that we really need. Yeah, you can't get enough cash early in this game because of those expenses. So now we need to work our way down here to St. Louis. St. Louis is our big city we can get to earliest. And what we're going to do down here, well, I'm thinking about what do I want to do. And what we're going to do actually is put a clothes factory in St. Louis because they will consume the clothes. And we're making the leather, and we were gifted a bunch of textiles. So we're going to try to see if we can't take advantage of that. And I'm contemplating whether I wanted to just go ahead and bring it down here by train kind of a standard way, and I decided, let's play around a little bit. So we're going to put in a warehouse down here in St. Louis. That'll give us kind of that trading in both cities. So we can do our market trading from Burlington. We can do it from St. Louis. And see, that message is still up there. It says we don't own any, but if we close it and come back, now we see we do. We have a warehouse in Burlington with nothing in it, and we have a warehouse in St. Louis with nothing in it. So what we're going to do here is go to the global warehouse and pull down a bunch of that textiles, load it into our market in Burlington. Then we're going to sell that out on the global market. So by selling it, we're driving the price of the textiles way down. So we sold that and made some money. We sold 20 units and made money. We've driven the price way down. Now we can go down here to St. Louis, go to the commodity exchange, and buy that stuff back. So basically, we have magically moved 20 textiles down to our clothing factory without having any trains. So we're going to now move that stuff we just bought down in St. Louis into our clothing factory. So now it has 20 textiles. And again, we haven't built a train yet to go down there. And we're going to go back to the city market up here and see if we can't get some leather so we can get some clothing production started. Now keep in mind, that's our leather. We're making the leather. We own the leather. So even though it says $2,400, it's not costing us anything to grab that leather. There's 4 there, 5 there. Now we're going to grab that leather, grab the 5. We're going to go back down to St. Louis. Oh, excuse me. First, we're going to sell that leather that we just got for a profit. Then we're going to go to St. Louis and buy leather at a reduced price. And now we've got leather, and now we can move the leather over to the clothes factory. And now we've got a working clothes factory down in St. Louis, making some clothes, and we haven't even connected to them yet. So far, so good. And liked it so much, we're going to do it again. I want to see where we are. We're at 143,000. We go to the exchange and we sell it all. Shoot, we sold a bunch of meat. That's going to mess it up. Now we're going to go down here to St. Louis and buy that 20 back. Well, we didn't quite buy it all. We bought some of it back. So 140, We're up 80, but we sold a bunch of meat, so I don't know how we actually stood there. But bottom line is we have a functioning clothes factory that's going to make some clothes for us. And those clothes are going to be kind of pure profit, if you will, because we can sell them to the city of St. Louis without any cost for the clothes itself. Now, we have to get the raw materials to the clothing factory, but the actual clothes, first of all, the city, if it has zero, it'll buy one automatically from our factory, and we'll make some money from that. But as we need cash, we'll sell more of them faster. So now I want to get it set up so we don't have to do that exchange all the time. I want to be able to run the leather that we're already making down to St. Louis, plus we have to have that connection to St. Louis to hit our objective, which is our first objective is to move troops and gunpowder to St. Louis from Burlington. Well, that can't be done through the exchange, the trading department. That has to be done with a good old-fashioned trade. So we're going to get a little bit out of the Star Trek magic transportation business and a little more into traditional train here. And we'll take a 40 and pick up leather. Get a full load of leather. We're going to use about 60 as our speed limit, our speed target, and we're going to move that leather down to the clothing factory. Now this train is just a sunk cost. It'll never make any money running like this, but that's okay. We need to get that clothing going, and we don't want to be, buying it from the commodity market all the time. Now we could have done this, by the way, and run trained and hauled textiles out of that local warehouse and leather out of our farm down to St. Louis and not had to go through the commodity exchange. I just wanted to see if it worked. If we could just magically move stuff there, and sure enough, we can. So now we've got some bricks, and they're useful in St. Louis. They will make money in St. Louis, so we're going to start running bricks down there. Now, we can sell those bricks on the market as well, of course, but by doing them this way, we'll make much more money because we can keep a steady, a much better price selling it to the city than we can get out on the commodity market. And that train will make money. That'll be a profitable train. Now we're going to go grab the two clothing in our factory and sell them to the city and make about 56 grand on that transaction. So that's a good deal on that part of the transaction. If you think of the whole transaction as the cost of getting the goods there, we didn't make that much money, but we definitely made a profit. And this line down to St. Louis is going to be huge. And by the way, I've kind of come to the conclusion, for me at least, I like the spacing I've got here for these signals. As we know, those of you who played this game a lot know, the closer you put this is weird, I think it's absolutely wrong, but, well, it has to do, I guess, with earth moving, soil cost. But the closer you put all your signals together, the cheaper the track by a fair amount. You can save you definitely a little bit of money by not spreading them out too much. You definitely don't want to just drag them down there and have big gaps, big maximum length track segments. That's the most expensive way to lay track. So putting them in, I like where I've been doing it. It's kind of in the middle. It's not quite as bunched as it could be. But it's spread out a little bit. It only cost, I did some tests. It only cost like an extra $4,000 or $5,000 to run the line down to St. Louis from Burlington by spreading it out the way I did it there versus building it really tight. And the advantage to that is now it'll be much easier to build mergers into that line as we start to add other things into that main line. And if you put all those little tight segments in there, you have to go in and delete some pieces of track just to even get a merge or to get a crossover to get over to another track or anything. So you can see there we're creating both Army uniforms and clothing. Now we don't have any use for the Army uniforms right now. They're not going to help us, but that clothing, we can certainly grab that clothing and sell it for $28,000 a pop in St. Louis. And St. Louis consumes stuff pretty quickly, so we can keep making money selling that clothing. So we're going to take advantage of the fact that we've got decent money right now. We're a long way from having an economy, but we're going to start. We need to get started running the soldiers and the gunpowder down to St. Louis. Make sure we don't run out of time on that task. So right now we've got, we're selling meat in Burlington, we're selling bricks in St. Louis, we're selling clothes in St. Louis, we're running the leather down there, and now I'm going to add a line to sell meat to St. Louis. And you could combine that with the like the line that's bringing the grain into the farm, but I really prefer having the dedicated line like this so that the grain is continuously flowing. We want to make sure that farm has grain at all times. We don't want it to slow down. So now we've got meat going off to St. Louis where it'll be sold at a good price, and since it's just the one train, it'll I would say it will always get top dollar. We're not going to fill up St. Louis with meat having one train running down there because St. Louis will consume it pretty quickly. Now in Burlington it's different. We're not going to make as much money in Burlington, but that's okay. We will make money. So going to do this again and move some more leather down there, or textiles down there. Sell them on the commodity exchange. Make some money on it. Drive that price down as low as we can get it. Go back to St. Louis and buy it back, and then move it. I shouldn't have left. Should have stayed there. Move it over to the clothing factory. So now we've moved all of those textiles down without running any trains. We're making clothing. We're selling clothing. There we go. So we're staying afloat. Now, when those textiles are gone, and they are, we have to be able to get more textiles in, or our clothing business is going to shut down. So we own a textile factory here in Columbia. So we're going to link that into our main line. Make sure it can go in both directions. We'll put crossovers where it comes in to make sure that as you come out you can get over on the right hand track if you choose to go on that one. And down here, same thing. If you come in on the right, we're going to make sure you can get over to the left side. So that'll allow people a train to get in and out of Columbia to the textiles. Then we've got cotton down here in the south. Now, if we couldn't trade with them, we'd have to, all bets are off. We'd have to do something totally different. But we're going to set up a line that comes off. We're going to take advantage of that bridge. And just over that bridge, before we get into the actual town of St. Louis, we're going to come on down here to the south. We're going to head down toward Greenbrier, where the cotton is, and coincidentally we're also heading down toward oil, and we're heading down toward our other big city, Memphis, where we can sell stuff to the south in Memphis. So we're going to run this line all the way down to Greenbrier. Okay, now we have the ability to run. We can keep our cotton going because now we can go down to Greenbrier, grab a load of cotton, like so, run it up to Columbia, to the textile factory, then grab textiles from Columbia, optionally, and drop them off on your way back in St. Louis. And I'm going to put one repair on Columbia so that train can get repairs. And now we should be able to keep leather coming down from Burlington to St. Louis, and we should be able to keep textiles coming from Columbia to St. Louis and cotton going to the textiles. So now we should have, once that all gets rocking and rolling, we should have a clothing business. Now, without having to worry about the global market to make it work, other than just selling to St. Louis, which we can also change that later. But added that little connection out the other end because now we're going to have that train, that cotton textile train. Its last stop is actually St. Louis, and it needs to get back down south. So we don't want it to have to go out the original connection because it would have to go somewhere and turn around to come back. So now we actually have a clothing business. But look at our money. I mean, every month we get hit with just ghastly charges for all these buildings, and we're trying to hang on to all of them so we don't have to give them up. So in order to keep the cash coming in, make sure we don't get too low, we're going to sell off that steel, we sell off the steel to the commodity market, get a pretty good price for it, and that'll keep us afloat for a while. And I'm looking down here and saying, oh, look at this. We could sell lumber into Rolla, and steel, for that matter, into Rolla, into that tool factory. So we're going to make a connection into Rolla, and this, I think, ended up just being a goof on my part. So there we have a connection. Now we could, in theory, run some of that lumber that we have up there and that steel. So watch what I'm doing. This is brilliant. I'm setting up a steel delivery into Rolla, which sounds great because you get a really good price for it. What a smart thing to do. There's just one problem with that, what I just did. We don't have any more steel. We sold it all off. We sold it on the global market. There is no steel, and we're not producing any steel anywhere. So that particular market acts weird. It keeps that. Most warehouses, once you run out of an object or a good, unless you're carrying it in your train, you don't see that good as a option in your warehouse. This one works differently. It says 0/10, so there's nothing in there for the steel, but it seems like there is, or should be, the way the way the rest of the warehouses work. Now I've got a big traffic jam here, and I need to fix it. Okay, so we're going to put in a second repair and a third filling station. And if we had a little more money, we'd put in a third repair because that's where a lot of the repairs are taking place in Burlington. And we need to keep these trains moving. It's horrible when they're sitting there waiting on each other like that. It's just horrible. See, we've gone significantly negative right here. We're in danger right this minute. So we need to go out. We need to figure out what do we got coming up. Or do we have any money coming? And we do have, no, we don't. We've got some bricks headed to St. Louis. That's about it. And we do have a train there loading up I'm not sure. I think T1, I've got T1 messed up. It should have optional load of, see, we sold the bricks. That took us back. We're not quite as negative. Oh, I see the problem. It can't sell. It's trying to sell. T1 is trying to sell meat to Burlington. Burlington is now full. We have glutted Burlington. So what we're going to do here is to make some money, we're going to go to the commodity exchange. We got some excess meat and we're going to sell it off, make some money with that. That still doesn't address the real problem, is that we need Burlington to consume more meat so that T1 will go ahead and move. So this was a goof. Now here, if I had been a little more with it, I wouldn't have sold this off on the commodity exchange. I would have let that train that I set up inadvertently with the steel, I would let it carry lumber down to Rolla, and that would have done us well, so to speak. Now the good news about the meat issue up in Burlington is that even though we're not getting wheat into the farm just yet, we have enough leather stored up in the farm to keep our clothes factory going, and the clothes factory is the biggie. See, there's some textiles heading to St. Louis now from our cotton textile train. And I think I punch in right here. I realize this train is just not loading. Why isn't it loading? Well, aha, there's nothing for it to load. So I did finally punch in. And decided, well, I got the train already. We're carrying its expense, so let's get some gunpowder headed down to St. Louis. Okay, so there's one problem fixed. And notice the Burlington T1 now has one meat. It had two. That means Burlington has consumed one, and now it's going to give it a second one. And eventually, you got to get off that. You got to have train dedicated to that wheat to really make it run properly. Or we need to be throwing everything into the warehouse and moving stuff in and out of the warehouse. We could do that. Now I want to set up the possibility of another customer for our clothing and everything else, but definitely clothing for now. Keep those prices up. So we're going to set up a line off of that cotton line and run it over here to Memphis. So now we'll have the ability to get into Memphis and make deliveries there. And fortunately, right before I bought that train, I had a semi-cogent thought. We've got T7 running. It's deadheading from St. Louis back down to the cotton. So why doesn't it just make a quick little trip over to Memphis, load some clothes when you stop in St. Louis optionally, and if you find any, unload them in Memphis. So that little trip over to Memphis won't take very long. It probably won't even affect our flow of cotton and textiles to the plant. So there we don't need another train, and we can start selling some clothing to Memphis. Now that's once this thing really gets going, when we really have some clothing to sell. Right now we're so strapped for cash that every time there's clothing available, we tend to go in here like this and grab it and sell it. Now notice it stopped making the uniforms. I want that to keep going. We don't see any use for them yet, but we know there's going to be a use for them. So rather than letting that production stop, we're going to move it over to the warehouse and allow every time now when the clothing factory is running, it's making a uniform and a unit of clothing. So here we notice that we need textiles in Burlington, and they cost rather cheap. They're down like $3,000. So we're just going to buy them up here, as long as they're going to stay under a price that we can get up in Burlington. We're going to buy a bunch of them, then go to our city market and sell those. And if I'm more patient, I would do this a little bit at a time. But I just can't abide with all the micromanagement. So I'm just going to sell off the textiles up there and make some good money on that, and also boost the satisfaction in Burlington and help city growth. And we'll see what we can sell logs for, wood, and we'll buy a couple of those and sell those off. Might as well, we can make a few dollars on it. So we made a little profit on that. And now Burlington's grown enough till it needs lumber, so we'll sell them some lumber. We'll stop at 8 because the price is going to drop, and we can wait a while and sell them some more. And what about coal? Can they? What's coal look like? Coal costs $3,800. It's just not. It's too tight. But we do have coal. We can start running coal. We actually have a few dollars. We can, if we choose to, we can run coal. And so I'm really looking around now to say, okay, what should we get into next? So we got that roller connection was just a waste. That was just it cost money to build it, and then now we have to maintain the station on top of that. Now I'm looking around and I'm trying to think of what to get into next. And I'm seeing a lot of need for lumber. Now, unfortunately, we've sold all ours off just to keep afloat. But I'm seeing a lot of need for lumber, and we do own a logging camp there in La Plata. And there's open land nearby in Quincy. So what we're going to do is hook up Quincy into our main system here. Give it crossover so that as it comes out, it can get to the other side. There we go. And now we're going to come out just past that little crossover and hook into the logging. And run our logging across to Quincy. Make sure it can go both ways just in case. And we'll give it a crossover here so they could get over to the right track as we're looking at it. from there. So now we should be able to run logging into Quincy. So what we're going to do now is build a sawmill, because we don't have, I don't think there was a sawmill anywhere for us, but there's a lot of need for lumber, and this is a short haul here. It'll be good. So we're going to run wood into that sawmill. You'll notice Quincy needs lumber and they need paper, which is perfect. So we're going to load up some paper and some lumber, optionally, and then, whoops, and then hold down Shift and hit that. There we go. Let go of the Shift and say, okay, bring the wood to the sawmill. If there's some lumber and paper there, pick it up, sell it to Quincy, and go back and do it again. We'll put repairs in Quincy, since that one won't be hitting repairs anywhere else. And now we should be able to get lumber production and paper production started, and actually cover the costs of it through selling those two products to Quincy. And then as we get going, we'll start moving, we have the option, more money, we'll start moving those goods, the paper and the lumber, to other places around our network. So now we're negative again, so we're going to go back to the city market and troll for dollars. Oh, I did take, by the way, I was willing to take an overdraft there to expand the warehouse. Remember, I've got 20 uniforms in there taking up all the space, but I do want to be able to use the warehouse, because we can, now here I really screwed up. This was a total goof. This was come on, punch in. I said, oh, look, we can get ore for a really cheap price. So I'm going to buy, what do I buy, like 10 ore? Cost me maybe 25 or 30 grand. I'm not sure, as it was changing prices. Now I'm putting it in the steel mill. And I just got to laugh at myself, because I forgot we own the steel mill. So we weren't getting paid for that. So we just bought some ore, and it's going to sit in the steel mill. Good for us. Now, what I should have done there when I realized that is I should have gone ahead and bought the coal. The coal, unfortunately, was priced where you couldn't really buy it and sell it at a profit. Well, we weren't selling it at a profit anyway. Should have bought some to get that steel production going. Then we could have sold the steel and gotten our money, at least gotten our money back. Probably made a profit on it, actually. All right. Well, now we've got a sawmill that's working, starting to produce. The wood train, next run, he'll go in and make a sell in Quincy and make us some money. And there we go. We're big time negative again. And I'm looking to see, do we have anything that's going to make us any money coming up, because we're seriously broke here. Also notice that there's an odd number. There's 35 troops you have to move. So had to change him to load 8 on his last trip. And that'll finish off that task. It's the same thing for the the gunpowder, because we're down to just 2 there that are left over that we need to take back. So we're getting close to having our big first task done. However, we are in serious trouble on our money right now. So we've got a second train here. We need cash so badly, I'm going to scrap that train just to get the cash back. And we're just hurting for money right this minute. Wood costs about 3. We can sell for 35. So we can. There we go. There we go. Sell the 2 lumber we already had. That gets us out of the negative. And it's early June, so we're not going to get that monthly charge for a while. So maybe we'll make it here. Okay, we're not going to go broke in the next 5 seconds, so we'll let it run and see what happens here. See if we can make enough money to just stay afloat until that last task is done. And I do think I made another error that I will catch with the loading of the gunpowder. I scrapped one of the gunpowder trains, but the one I scrapped is the one that I changed the route on to only pick up 2 on its last pickup. So there, look at T8 up there. See how it's still in Burlington, and it's got 2. It's got 2 gunpowder, but it's not going anywhere. All right, broke again. Let's go see if there's anything we can do. Hopefully I won't do anything too stupid. There, now this is not stupid. Grab that clothing and sell it. There we go. Okay, and so you're not broke. Now there I noticed there's nothing left. There's no gunpowder, there's no soldiers. Why aren't we finishing off our task? I think I'm about to figure it out. Maybe not. Maybe not. I did realize there's 4 more of these that we can sell and get a little cash. We just need to, we're just trying to stay afloat right now. If we can just stay alive through this first phase, then there's hope. And there, finally. When I see this, I say, okay, scrap that train because we're done carrying that. We really need the cash. Don't ask me why it dawned on me to finally look over here, but we're going to grab these 2 employees that help with all. One gives you office space. The other one takes a little bit of it back, but cuts everybody's salaries. So that's an investment in the future. So apparently at this point, I thought I had a future. Click on that. Click T8. There you go. Come on, click T8. All right. Hooray. Look at that. Look at that. Make those optional and let that thing go. Hooray. Way to go. Way to go, Anakin. I feel like some of you must feel when you're watching me play and you know I've goofed something up and you're going, come on, fix that, fix that. That's how I feel right here. So now when he gets down there, that's going to finish off our first task. We will have all, there we go. So we finished the first task, and now they're telling us we've got the battle for Jefferson City. So now we've gone into war mode. We've been in surviving economy. Now we're going into war mode, which is extremely expensive. So needless to say, right at this point, we don't have an economy yet. But if we look, we knew those uniforms were there for something. We're making them. We're storing them. What can we do with them? And looky there. They will pay us $25,000 a pop for those babies. So we're going to go. Well, I was checking to see if we could do it through the commodity exchange. We cannot. We cannot just move them over from our warehouse into the Army camp. But we can certainly use a train. So here comes the next train that's coming in. We're going to tell it to go to our warehouse, grab a load of uniforms, and then sell them to the Army camp. There we go. And those are worth $25 a pop, selling 8 of them. So that's a couple $100,000 right there. We sell the meat at a good profit. Then we load up the uniforms and sell them at a terrific profit. And now, now we have a little bit of breathing room. We have some money, and we see how we can have a source of money going down the road with the uniforms that we're making. So we can sell both uniforms and clothing. So I'm thinking, do I want to keep doing that? And I said, no. We're going to set that up to run all the time. So we're going to take that whole uniform thing off that. That train was just there. We picked him just because he was there, right? He was the next train in. We would have taken whatever train came in. They would have had their orders modified. Now we're going to go down and get one of our little buddies, the best friend, and we're going to move him down to St. Louis. And we're going to tell him to pick up. First of all, let's empty out the warehouse. Let's pick up from the warehouse and take them to St. Louis. And of course, you know that's wrong. I keep doing that. I'm trying to decide, do I want to do the factory too? And I think I'm going to realize, well, again, here I go root for myself again. I'll figure it out. But this station's getting really busy. And I was going to make it a filling station only and have all the upgrades for filling speed and cheap filling. And now that I'm putting that Best Buy there, it really needs repairs. So I'm just going to make it my usual super station and give it repairs. And I still haven't caught my error. But give me time. So now we've started picking up costs for maintaining those soldiers. And I'm trying to figure out. Now the good news is we've sold 8 and the price is still the same. So that price isn't changing on us. And I don't know which train is my best friend. I'm thinking it hadn't made it down there yet. They are very slow. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's T10 staring right there at us. It's because I'm looking on the track. I don't see any slow-moving trains. So there it is, T10. And then I realized what I've done. To have it go to the same station and work like that, it has to have another stop at that station. So we'll give it another stop and then say, okay, now make us some money. Now watch our money go. There we go. Now we've emptied the warehouse. Now we're going to set it up to do that same thing from our clothing factory. And now it'll just keep doing that as we make new stuff. We've got over $700,000. Now we're ready to play the game. So all that was just to survive with using freight only, no passengers, no mail. And we seem to be in pretty good shape now. Famous last words. We shall see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railroad Corporation video. Thank you.